Hey guys, so just jumping right into chapter 138, let's talk about that ending where the Interstellar Union Army has essentially put up a blockade around Nero 66. And the thing is, we've seen this kind of song and dance before in Mashima's series. Like we know, this more than anything is a standard. Is the most quintessential Mashima story trope. We know how this shit plays out. A government body exercising power over an antagonistic force only to be completely decimated, and that's kind of the same setup here. It's basically a it's honestly again one of Mashima's standard tropes. Now, now having said that, there is a caveat to this, which is that when it comes to Eden Zero specifically, Mashima seems to have been really great at taking those tropes and flipping them on their head in some way. He's one thing that's been constant with Eden Zero is how he manages to take a lot of the tropes he's used in previous series and just kind of flip them over and just flip them on their head in really epic ways, frankly. And so in this case, I think one thing to keep in mind here is that while the organization of the of the galactic empire government, whatever, as a whole, has felt largely incompetent and just not very smart in certain ways. One thing that has also been shown as well is that the individual members, specifically those in the Erasure Interstellar, have proven to be capable fighters. So in this case, obviously the one we're focusing on is Erasure, and I think just the fact that Erasure is so confident in dealing with Shura makes me think that that he definitely has a few tricks and maneuvers in order to use from pretty much now until the point where everything goes just completely south. And honestly, even if the honestly it's one of those things where I pretty much get such a certain presence from I get such a certain presence from Eraser that it feels like even if the fleet inevitably gets decimated, which it more than likely will, Eraser, I think again he seems like one of those guys who's basically got a pretty much contingency for any situation. So even if so even if like the entire fleet gets destroyed in some way, I think he himself is still going to have a plan in order to face down Shura and get himself on the plan in order to fight Shura, I think, or something like that. That's just the vibe I've gotten. Now now let's talk about Erasure himself for a second, because maybe I'm overthinking it, and it's probably just his demeanor that's throwing me off. But something about Erasure's like appearance on Nero 66 is just very suspicious to me. Like I don't like obviously the Interstellar Galactica, obviously the Russian states Interstellar, their whole purpose is to defeat and capture the Russian states Galactica. But I don't know, something about this just feels a little too convenient. And I think for me personally, it kind of ties back to what we were. It kind of ties back, I think to the last. Well, I think it ties back to the last chapter, where where Nero had said everything is going in the way of destiny, in the way of fate, in the way that the pretty much dice have foretold. And I think I think Eraser's appearance on Nero 66 is going to be is basically what Nero was talking about. Like Eraser is the turning point in which things are gonna be turn over into Nero's favor, I think. And so, but moving on from that, yeah, honestly, Goodwin just went up quite a few spots in my favorite character as one of my favorite characters after this chapter, because the thing is, because the thing is, obviously, when it comes to like for real life application and history of war, like history has shown it's a little more complicated than how Goodwin laid it out in this chapter. But at the same time, Goodwin's not wrong either that war as a concept does nothing but claim lives. And while individuals themselves do have real ideological reasons in order to fight, it's also true that history is written by the winners. And the winners, more often than not, are those in power, those who will exploit a person's genuine beliefs for fighting and twist that into something perverse when at the end of the day everyone is just fighting for what they believe in and what they want to protect. Like Goodwin is the very is Goodwin is fighting the very power structure that forces those ideals to be twisted. And yeah, I guess I should mention that in saying a lot of this, it is somewhat reminiscent of Dragon, although there is kind of a somewhat small comparison to make between Monkey D. Dragon and Goodwin in that regard. Although I think the biggest difference is that Goodwin goes for definitely a more direct approach, and Goodwin I feel is definitely a lot more sympathetic in how he's actually willing to teach. He's actually willing to pretty much sit down, have a conversation, and actually want to teach those who are willing to listen as to what he even has to say. So yeah, in that respect, again, what can I say? Goodwin, the he's again the whole concept, the whole ideal of war. It's complicated, but in the way it's presented here, Goodwin isn't exactly wrong either, and I really love how Goodwin just lays it out all on the table. Um, so with that being said, let's talk about Witch and Hermit basically wrecking the royal guards. Because Witch is one thing; she's a bad bitch that's been proven countless times. It's proven that countless times. But I'm sorry, but when you pretty much get beat by a lolly with the brain of a master hacker, that's when you should realize you failed at life. Period. End of story. No argument. You have no argument at that point. Um, Being serious though, the pretty much fact that Hermit was able to so effectively coordinate the pretty much attacks on the royal army shows me that right now she is right now is one of the most important people right now in terms of taking on Shura, because having like obviously with this with the turning point in this chapter, obviously Goodwin is going to lend his strength to Shiki and the Eden Zero crew. But the thing is, having an armada is one thing, but having someone in order even coordinate an attack properly is another. And this chapter kind of proves to me that Hermit's capability of doing that is beyond rapport. Like Hermit is from the is from the is from the strategic glue that is going to make an attack on Shura even possible to begin with. And just in general, I think we need to keep an eye on her when this war finally gets heated, because yeah, she's definitely going to be a power player. Um, One thing I also really like is how pretty much Shiki defeating Draken Joe finally came back into play as a means of basically of like finally convincing Goodwin of Shiki's potential. Because while I know he would have brought that conflict back around in some way, I was also beginning to think that Mashin was going to completely sweep that fight under the rug. But I do like how he did bring it back into the story back in the story through Laguna, like telling Goodwin about what happened. Again, and it's also another clever way of working Laguna into the plot. But even more than that, I love how getting to see the Eden's crew just completely decimate the Royal Guard in every sector also served as a means to prove Goodwin other capabilities as well. And even though we are kind of loosely addressing it through even though we are kind of loosely addressing it through Zenolith, like Zenolith's training, that also gives me hope we're not far behind from bringing Shiki's Overdrive back into play, because it feels even longer since Mashima addressed that little nugget of information. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and also to Control. That's not me. Signing off. Later, guys.